Okay. Welcome, everyone. I hope you all had a productive week. This session is going to be, give me 1 second. I hope you all had a wonderful, productive week. This session is going to be going around in a circle and say on a scale from 1 to 10, how good your symptoms were this last week. Nothing detailed, just share a lower number if there were some struggles, and higher if things were easier. Johnson, can you go ahead and go first? Just let us know.
Yeah, my week's been productive but pretty hectic. I'd probably rate it on a 7 if I had to do 1 out of 10.
And Crystal, how are you doing?
Um, I would say definitely the beginning of my week would cause me to rate my week as a 4. I had a few days where I was pretty down and pretty much in my feelings. But I'll say the end of the week, yesterday and today, I do feel a lot better and a lot more positive. But overall, 4.
Oh, good. Okay. And it looks like Hope's on the move. We'll give her a second.
Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Thanks a lot for that, Hope. And how
Uh-huh.
how are you
Oh
how
no, no.
how are you doing this week?
I'm gonna say my depression, anxiety is probably about a 4 right now. hmm Yeah, I'm at a 4.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. We're gonna see what we can do to kind of help you a little bit today. Okay.
That sounds great.
Okay. So I know we've kind of been in a group for a bit, but let's go ahead and try to do a warm up activity here to kind of get things kind of started. Can you introduce yourself and say something positive about yourself and what your diagnosis actually is? Just take time to see what you want to share, what diagnosis you have, be it major or minor depression, generalized or acute anxiety. Just let us know where you're kind of at.
Um,
Also, I'm sorry.
I can start.
I I I feel like I need to share a little bit first myself too,
Oh,
just so you
yeah,
just so you're aware.
that would be
I
good.
have major depression and generalized anxiety. So my name's Chip. I'm the group leader here, and I think something positive about myself is I'm still willing to try to do this, even though in my head things are spinning or get nervous or whatever. I still try to push through. I still try to push through it. But I appreciate you wanting to go next, Crystal. So go ahead.
Yep, my name is Crystal, and my diagnosis is minor depression. And I think what's positive about me is that, like I said, I had a rough day this week. Even when I have a rough day, and even when I'm emotional and I'm sad and down about things in my mind, I'm still a good mom and I still do all the things that I have to for my kids, all the things, make dinner, get them to school, get them ready for bed and all that. And I always feel good about that.
How you doing, Jocelyn?
Um, my name's Jocelyn. I have been diagnosed with major depression and generalized anxiety disorder as well as PTSD. But I think I've been doing better than when I was first diagnosed. I do use a lot of meditation and yoga to kind of reground myself and make myself feel a little bit better when I'm in periods of stress. And that's really helped as well as counseling and then attending, these group sessions, learning more about myself. But overall, I think I'm doing okay even though I have this diagnosis. It is a little stressful knowing that I was diagnosed with something that's pretty serious. Um, but I try to push through every day and look at the positives at the end of each day. Usually when I'm like going to sleep, I'll like think about everything that I'm grateful for. And that does really help kind of push me, through it.
Sure, of course. And I can see where you and Crystal have a lot in common as far as what you're dealing with and that kind of thing. And we'll try to, show you that depression is not this big angry monster in your head. There actually is a cause for these things.
Mm-hmm.
Hope, can you please introduce yourself and say something positive about yourself?
I do deal with some anxiety and generalized anxiety and some depression issues. So I have a positive traits is that I am very optimistic, even on my rough days or having days where I'm really struggling with my emotions. So I try my best to keep a positive outlook and strive to have a good day no matter what I'm feeling.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the workbook and we're going to start with what depression actually is and what causes it. So what it says here is that depression is caused by either a genetic versus a traumatic effect. So you can be genetically dispositioned for it, but at the same time, you may not have it because nothing actually triggered it. And so we are able to improve our condition because certain neurochemicals in our brains are causing these issues, and the balancing out of that does help out a lot with being able to move and be able to deal with our lives as it is. So does anybody have any questions about what anxiety actually does or what it actually is or anything else along those lines?
I guess my only thing is I do tend to wonder sometimes like why certain people have those chemical imbalances and others don't. And I don't know if it's like actually like based on genetics and we're just like, we happen to be the one that gets it. I always wonder about that.
Well, that's really where the genetic thing comes into play, where you may have gotten it from one of your parents, then down to the family. I know in my case, my anxiety came from my grandfather, as far back as we can trace it that far back. But he flew aircraft off of aircraft carriers. So clearly he got over his anxiety by just getting in the cockpit and getting through it. So it is something that we kind of struggle with down the line a little bit. And I think even though it may skip a generation, your parents would have some experience with it probably too.
Sorry.
Crystal, do you have any questions or anything?
Okay. I'm just trying to.
I guess I kind of
I'm
thought
not
what
trying
Josh
to be
was
rude.
saying about the genetics
This is
situation
exciting.
because
I appreciate
like
it.
my parents don't have depression and I've never, or maybe they just like never said that, but I no one in my family has it and I actually never had it until after I had kids. So I guess I just wonder why that happened to me all of a sudden. I just never knew what that felt like before.
Well, believe it or not, developing depression after having kids literally is a diagnosis in some situations.
Oh,
Was
really?
it's called postpartum depression, where where if you had children, you develop depression after you have your kids because the chemical imbalance that happened when you were having the kids. It just there's more to it, of course, than that, but there actually is a diagnosis for that. You may want to get that looked at as far as was it more of a specialist seeing if that actually is the cause for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my body and mind has all changed so much after children. Kind of messes you up a lot.
Well, I can definitely understand where you're coming from on the whole kids can cause chaos kind of thing. It's what goes along with it. This is why I have cats.
Yeah, that's probably the way to go.
Oh, did you have any questions about depression at all?
I will say my depression probably comes from my parents. My both my parents have really deep chronic depression and a lot of anxiety. So I believe those traits kind of came on to me as a very young child. And also, I do have a learning disability and some medical issues. So, with that being said, that also comes with a form of depression and anxiety when you've had to deal with a lot of different procedures and a lot of different things you've had to do as a child and even as an adult. So yeah, so definitely, it's been, very hard and, but despite having those struggles, I just try to keep my head above waters and just keep going.
Absolutely, and sometimes that's all you can really do is just keep your head above water for a while.
Mhm.
Meditation, breathing exercises works pretty well for
Mhm.
getting self-centered and getting through the day sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, Now I mentioned before that there's a genetic disposition for it, but there can also be a trauma that's caused by that kind of sets off. Kind of think of it as a fuse for a bomb. The trauma sets it off, and suddenly you develop the symptoms. So there's more. There's that genetic part we talked about, but there's also the trauma part that may have at some point kind of lit your fuse, and ends up you end up developing a depression diagnosis out of that. Now, I'm not going to ask anyone to share whatever trauma they may have experienced. It's completely up to you. But I can tell you that for me personally, I was blinded by an accident as a kid, and as a result, I didn't get out of bed for 3 months. I mean, I would just it hit me so hard because I was being talked to by Navy recruiters. They were talking about putting me on like Tomcats. This is back in Top Gun was kind of big, so I really wanted to fly fighter jets off of aircraft carriers, not unlike my grandfather. But suddenly, when you get blinded, they stop calling. So my entire future that I had, all kind of set up for myself with Navy, just went away. And there was nothing more than I could, there was nothing more I could do. And my dad didn't have any experience with depression at all. So he thought I was just being lazy, didn't want to get out of bed. He just kind of gave up. So that's been since I was in high school. And I didn't receive a diagnosis until about 5 years later when someone noted about behaviors that I might want to looked into getting diagnosed and treated for with medication for this.
Mhm.
And that took a lot to go to the doctor and see what was actually wrong with me, kind of thing. And that's how I looked at it, with what's wrong with me. And it's not a matter of what's wrong with you. I've learned that much. It's not. It's just who you are. And you can either live with that and learn to work with it and get your life going again, or not. I mean, it's tough for everybody, and it's an individual path or road for everybody to kind of walk down. When I did get on the medications, it took me probably 6 months to get into basic equilibrium with the medications. I call it neurochemical bingo, because everybody's brain is different, so everybody's medication regimen is therefore different. And it feels like the doctor's basically throwing something at the wall, seeing what sticks, which is not necessarily inaccurate, but it does kind of get scary when you're feeling your brain do things that you didn't expect it to do, or you and someone says you're behaving a certain way, and you have no idea because it's all subjective for you. It's normal for you. So you have to kind of go off of what someone else is saying about how you're behaving or what they see or whatever. And that's really tough. Be open for that. Does anybody else have any idea what may have been their trauma that could have set off their depression at all?
Well, I guess
Oh, go ahead.
I kind of already said, I guess it was my baby. It's kid's fault.
Oh.
It's not necessarily any kid's fault or anything. It is the messing up of your neurochemistry after having. And I'm not a specialist. I can't diagnose you, but it did sound very similar to what I was familiar with on that one. But you should definitely get that if you're not already being treated for it. You may want to start looking into with your doctor, seeing what could work with that, because you may be surprised that it might not be that difficult to deal with.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. My diagnosis of, I mean, I've always dealt with anxiety, but my diagnosis when I got diagnosed with major depression and PTSD was after an abusive relationship I was in. We were engaged at one point, and I didn't know at the time. I was young. I was only like, I just turned 21. So I didn't know that it was an abusive relationship. I thought it was normal. And until I saw a therapist that actually sat down and listened to me and expressed to me that what I was experiencing was not, in fact, love or normal or healthy. I actually didn't, I feel like that kind of woke me up because I didn't recognize it. And that's when I got diagnosed. So I do know where it came from. But it's definitely difficult to deal with, and it does present its problems here and there. It's still a work in progress for me, but um I have been prescribed medication for it, so I'm dealing with it. But it's definitely difficult. And even though I'm happy to have gotten the proper care I needed, I still think there's some residual effects even after knowing your diagnosis, because I think there's a lot of stigmas around mental health, and people see you a certain way if they know that about you, and it's hard, but
Stigma is really rough to deal with too, because people act weird because you're chemically imbalanced, and that's not who you are at all. And the stigma, when I first kind of got diagnosed and went through what's referred to as an intensive outpatient, where we learned about all this stuff and we learned about who we were and how we were functioning with this, I started daring people to like bring in stigma, because you're surrounded by people who are just like you.
yeah.
It's weird because we're always very withdrawn sometimes when about our diagnosis, but when there's other people in the room, suddenly the person who doesn't have a diagnosis is the one being left out,
Yeah.
because we all know what we're dealing with. I mean, it's
Yeah.
suddenly you have someone in common to be able to deal with and work with them, and be able to, and understand exactly what you're going through. It's almost like finding your tribe,
Yeah.
that you now feel you don't feel so left out. You don't feel like this is no longer a thing I can deal with or whatever. It's like others know exactly what I'm going through. This is amazing. This is really great.
Yeah.
Hope, did you feel like you need to share anything? Like I said, it's purely voluntary.
Yeah, I deal with PTSD. I've been diagnosed with it, probably with complex PTSD due to trauma, being abused as a child. So, I've been in therapy like one-on-one individual therapy for 23 years. And I'm just now starting trauma therapy, doing EMDR, which is eye movement to sensory. Basically, they'll be doing different eye movements and exercises to help process that trauma. So it is really good to have a group of people that can understand you, and you don't feel alone. And so yeah, definitely the stigma is there, but you just gotta sometimes push that to the side, and that's not always easy. That's not always easy.
No, it
And
is not.
I no, and I've had moments where that's been very hard for me to deal with, but that's where the therapy and the trauma therapy has really saved me and helped me through all my process, whether it's been anxiety, depression, and medication also is also been really helpful to help reduce some of those symptoms that I deal with.
Yeah, and you bring up a very interesting point. And as helpful as group is, and you can see where you are surrounded by people who know exactly what you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
and
Exactly.
it's a lot of times group therapy doesn't give what you can do for an individual therapy when you're
Right.
talking to a counselor. And
Mm-hmm.
Hope brings up a good point that working with individual counselors can be a big deal, and help
Mm-hmm.
you get breakthroughs and help you be able to get happy again, kind of thing. Feel like you're allowed to feel your emotions again, because we kind of get scared of them because of what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And you're allowed to be who you are. You're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely allowed your emotions. But with a counselor, you're able to find that balance a lot easier. So I appreciate everyone sharing today. That was, trauma is it's this thing that hides it. It's this thing that hides out. It's a real thing,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're facing it, it doesn't end up being all that scary. You accept that something happened in your life, you're learning to deal with it, and you're moving
Mm-hmm.
on.
Yep.
So as we're kind of closing down the group today, could Jocelyn, can you kind of share what you've learned a little bit through this whole thing?
I've learned that I don't feel so alone. I feel like I'm not the only one out there dealing with it. And that's helpful to me because it gives me a positive outlook that this isn't all of who I am. It's just a part, and it's a part that I can get through and kind of move forward with my life and progress, to be who I want to be without it hindering me.
I think you're doing great, and thanks so much for sharing with what you've kind of gone through. I can I've also kind of been in abusive relationships, and they
Mhm.
sneak up on you.
They do.
They really do. And getting out of it sometimes the most bravest thing you can possibly do with your life. So absolutely, thank you for sharing that.
Thank
Crystal, did you learn anything today?
Yeah, I liked that you taught the aspect of the genetics in depression, anxiety, because um I guess I didn't realize like your parents could have depression and that could lead down to you. And then, yeah, I think I'll definitely take your referral for seeing somebody that maybe my depression is caused by pregnancy and having a child, and maybe I do have postpartum. I guess I never thought of it that way. And yeah, I appreciate the referral. I think I'll follow up on that.
you.
It's so common that I think that once you if you actually are with that diagnosis, there's no, because I don't want to say you're suffering from it, because it's not that at all. You're living with it.
Mhm.
Um, I think you'll find that it is so common that treating it ends up being a lot easier than you might think. And because of that, when you realize how much easier it is to be able to deal with, and you're not on your own dealing with it either. That's the best part. You feel
Yeah.
like part of that is that you feel like you're the only one in the room feeling that way, and you're really not. So it's more of a common kind of cause for what you're maybe going through.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. I know that's really a lot to kind of go in for a group, but I really appreciate you being open and sharing with that to us today.
Thank you.
Hope, no problem. Absolutely. Hope, did you learn anything today?
I learned that it's okay to allow those emotions to come and to be able to talk about those feelings and emotions and the trauma openly. And just having something in common with others, knowing that's made me feel more comfortable to be able to share that. So thank you for letting me able to um, trust that in you to share those struggles with the group. So because it is tough for me to open up sometimes. So and I'm just very grateful that um, I was allowed to be in that moment within the group.
Well, thank you very much for being part of the group. I know it's a lot to kind of deal with, and sharing these things that are sharing your diagnosis. While it's a lot easier in a group, like I said, everyone's got one, so it's
Mm-hmm,
not.
mm-hmm,
Ends up being kind of more of a joy, and suddenly the person who
mm-hmm,
doesn't have a diagnosis feels a little left out. And so it's nice to be able to kind of find, like I said, it's like finding your tribe where people understand what you're going through and they might have suggestions on what to do next, as far as either maybe, hey man, I mean, working with a counselor maybe really worked for me. You got to try it, be more open. Or I went to group and oh man, I loved it. And I didn't expect to actually enjoy it. Um, so it can be a lot. It's sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take that first step forward to get involved in this kind of thing, because it's so easy to stay in bed. I
mm-hmm.
did it, like I said, I did it in high
I think
school.
I will. I think I will try it. I think I will.
I did it in high school for 3 months. Didn't graduate from high
Mm-hmm,
school. Didn't do anything.
mm-hmm,
So I'm experiencing my own anxiety right now because I'm graduating soon, and I never got a chance to walk across the stage or wear the
mm-hmm,
robe or get the diploma or anything like that. I never did that in high school because
mm-hmm,
I just dropped out because of my depression. So now all things I get to do the cap and gown thing. I get to go up and do the graduation thing,
yeah.
and it's been a lot as
Mm-hmm.
far as wondering about how this is going to kind of go. I've been really nervous about it. Well, thank you very much for coming to group today, guys. Um, I know this was a lot today. I really appreciate everyone for being open about sharing again with what's affected you and what you've kind of gone through. Um, we will. Well, let me think for a second. We're not quite there yet, so we still have a little time. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share? Yes, we have a little time left.
I think that this group was really helpful. I just know that like from what I was hearing with everyone and their diagnosis, like it's really interesting to kind of hear like how you were expressing the genetic aspect of it, but then also that it can be, it can come from a traumatic situation as well. And like, I guess even though maybe I knew that subconsciously, it never actually registered to me that maybe that's what actually happened. And maybe it wasn't all genetics, maybe it was the fact that I went through something traumatic that really triggered everything. And it's not my fault that it happened. It just did. And now my body's trying to not only protect me, but help me through that.
And a big part of the abusive relationship that you mentioned is that they make it all your fault,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's not your fault at all.
Yeah.
And realizing that is a big step in the right direction as far as what you're dealing with. And I have to admit, you're probably one of the bravest people I know dealing with that kind of thing. So
Thank you.
after we'll meet the same time next week. Be Wednesday at 7 o'clock at night. So after work for everybody. Um, there's bus schedules I have available in case you have some trouble getting here. We'll meet for the hour, and that'll be that. Does anybody else have anything else they want to say before we end the group?
No.
All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.